My name is Sandra Cochrane. I'm a technology business consultant with the Michigan Small Business and Technology Development Center. And I work a lot with startup companies and a lot with the going to market kind of strategies. And so I've been asked to facilitate today and ask some questions and keep these guys on their toes and keep them talking. We will, I'll have each of them introduce themselves first, then I'll ask a couple questions to get the ball rolling, and then I will open it up to the audience and see if you guys have questions. If not, I've got a whole list of questions. I can keep this thing going till it's time to end. So with that, let me introduce Ed. Ed, introduce yourself, talk about your company and your entrepreneurial experience.
Sure. Hello, I'm Ed Schaefer, founder and CEO of Advanced Battery Concepts. At Advanced Battery Concepts, we've developed green seal technology that makes your lead acid battery better. Makes it last longer, lighter, and more powerful, and all at the same price. I started my entrepreneurial journey in about 3.5 years ago in my garage. I'm that, the guy in the garage, and we've leveraged a lot of the resources here in the region to keep growing the company up, especially through the Mid-Michigan Innovation Center, which brings us this event tonight. So by way of background, I've been in Midland for about 20 years, worked at Dow Chemical for a while. Great company, but they weren't really going to let me be an entrepreneur too much, so this has been a real fun endeavor.
My name's Tom Sesti. I'm with a company called Vandals Footwear, and we make women's interchangeable comfort sandals. 75% of our business is distributed through women's home parties, and we've been on the market. This is our 4th year. There's currently somewhere north of 150,000 pairs of Vandals branded sandals out there on people's feet in the U.S. and in 15 countries we're in. By way of my background, I've been pretty much an entrepreneur since the age of 19. First several years were more in the financial and investment agency type market, and then the last about 15 years in consumer products. So my background is retail, and prior to this with other consumer products.
I'm Mark Bush. I'm the president of AMPM. It's a marketing communications company right here in Midland. We've been here since 1969. We are mainly business to business. Clientele that we have. We do some B2C. We actually have worked with entrepreneurs, worked with MMIC when they first started up to establish them, their brand, their direction and messaging, and at the same time, we've worked with a lot of companies within there. So entrepreneurs is not new to us, and we understand them and enjoy working with them.
I'm Julie Battle. I am owner of Good Works Communications. You may, if you're from Midland, be familiar with Bolger & Battle. That was a company I started with Greta Bolger 18 or so years ago, and I sold my part in it about 6 years ago. Being the entrepreneur at heart, I decided to start another one. So I focus primarily on, I have an extensive corporate background, but I really enjoy the nonprofit and the small to mid-size firms and helping them out.
Okay, thanks. Well, since this session is entitled Going to Market, I think I want to start with Ed and ask, how did you identify as you were beginning and getting ready to figure out who your market is?
And that is a great question, right? Who is going to be your market, and why is it your market? So, clearly we're battery guys, and batteries are everywhere. So, I mean, there's lots of different markets we could have gone after. So we thought, well, why is it we want to go after certain ones, and what is it we're really trying to achieve with our strategy? So our focus is a technology play. We want to license it to battery guys. So at the end of the day, our customers will be battery producers to license our technology. But we have to prove that it works. And so you want to enter into markets that allow us to prove quickly that it does work. The Chevy Bolt, cool, but not going to allow me to do it quickly. So, so our approach to the marketing eye is, trying to identify which ones will allow me to get our product out in the field, demonstrate reliability, the benefits of the technology, and build the case for someone to come buy us.
What are some of the methods that you use to learn that kind of information?
Yeah, and so by way of background, I'm a science guy. I'm a geek, I'm really good with Excel spreadsheets, so that was kind of some marketing stuff and Googling. But, we worked with the Mid-Michigan Innovation Center, as I said, and they hooked us up with Northwood initially, who, they had students in an MBA program that are marketing students that needed projects. So that was a real quick resource for us to start going after just some generic data, what are the applications and what, but, the web and the resources there are, really available to lock things down quickly.
Jerry, you're already starting with questions.
That's
All
one
right.
of the questions, a great follow-on for Ed. For your customers, there's really no advantage to your technology because it's cost neutral. The real advantage is experienced by the people who buy the batteries. So there's sort of a pass-through. How does that affect your go-to-market strategy?
Well, actually, when I'm in the boardroom and the CEO speak with the battery guy, Jerry, my pitch is one thing, margin. So my value proposition to the battery producer is margin. So we actually offer him a path to higher gross margin. So that's, just to make sure that we all, because that's what they care about. He's CEO, what's his love language?
Blah, blah,
I'm gonna,
blah, money.
right, blah, 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 operating margin, right? So, but for the consumers though, really, it's a little bit, like you said, it's the benefits. Oh, this lasts longer. Oh, that's a 24-volt battery. I didn't know you could do that. Well, I only need one battery, then I don't need two 12-volt batteries. So it is different identifying the benefits, that we offer to identify. Okay, who's really going to pull that in and pay us money for us quickly?
Now, Tom, your product is on there. I should have also clarified that. Ed, you're almost to market. You're
Almost.
not quite there, so you're in a
I'll
situation.
sell you a battery.
Yeah.
Might take the,
Could be on market today.
The
Right,
right
be on the market
might
today.
be a little long. but
So
I'll
yours
sell
is
you.
still kind of a forward-looking. This is who we believe our market is, and then this is what we're going after.
Yeah.
Tom, you are on the market, and you have a lot of customers now. But things have changed, haven't they? So what did you learn once you got on the market, and how did you respond?
Right, so we found out that two changes for us in our market. One was the demographic shifted from what we thought, when we were sitting in the room designing this business. We thought it would be a 25 and under market who liked fashion and aren't these cute, and instead it ended up being the 25 and up market who thought this is comfortable and we like the ability to control our own destiny on our fashion. So we had a shift in demographic. The other thing that changed significantly for us was our channel. So we started out in retail. We spent about a year and a half, 2 years selling traditional retail through manufacturers, reps, and found that because our product is so interactive and it needs to be demonstrated, and because there's so few retailers out there anymore that are willing to take the time to demonstrate to a customer when they come in, they want you to already have done the advertising, the marketing, so that people can come in the door to know who you are, and that's just not the reality of a company, a startup company. We had to look for a way where we could cut out the middleman and communicate directly to the consumer and show them how the product worked. And for us, that was home parties. We became aware of that market. We tested it and found that it was a perfect environment for us. People were able to interact. We could show them the product in the home party. They loved the ability to hang out with their girlfriends and go, oh, let me try this on, and that's so cute on you, and all that sort of thing. And we saw our sales more than double as soon as we hit that, and that's why we're 75% into that, into that with our sales, just because we followed the dollars, and that was just a change that came by nature more than by design.
Great. Oh, question here?
Yeah, I've got a similar product, might work the same way. How did you find people to do home markets, or did you go to?
We started out with, within our personal network, trying to find some people, doing a test, basically, testing out, seeing if we could prove out the concept internally before we tried to make any shifts. Then we went to the markets where our retail presence was weaker and started to look for a couple people that could test, that had maybe a little bit of experience, were looking for a new opportunity. And we've just, grown it from there by identifying leaders in markets we want to go to, build the leadership and have them help us recruit. And that's really been, the way we did. And we've spent a lot of time getting to know that industry, understanding it, learning best practices, things like that. So that's, that's where we've built. We're up to about 150 reps right now in the U.S. in about 20 to 30 states is where we're at right now.
I want to jump over, Mark, just for a moment and go to Julie. One of the important parts about going into a market is raising awareness. I mean, people can't buy your product unless they know about it. What are some things that maybe businesses, early stage young businesses with not a lot of capital, what can they do to do messaging and do branding and raise awareness?
Well, I think the first thing, and it's often overlooked, is the very first thing you need to do is create a solid logo and tagline. And oftentimes, you don't have a lot of money, so you go to someone that you might know, or your high schooler to do this, and it's a real mistake, because that logo has to live with your product forever. And it represents your product. So to me, before you even start thinking about awareness, you have to have a solid logo and tagline. The other thing is, is a solid plan. In knowing your audience, if you don't know who you're talking to, it's hard to know what to say to them. Where did they go? What's their lifestyle? All of those things before you start getting out there.
Okay, so let's say we know our audience and we go to someone and get help when we have a brand, or we want to start messaging. Mark, I want to bring this over to you now and talk to the group maybe a little bit about social media, traditional media. How can those be utilized? What are maybe even your recommendations and thoughts about using those outlets?
Yeah, social media, I would say, is just another tool. I mean, you can't use social media all by itself. You can't use traditional necessarily nowadays all by itself. So there's multiple tools that you go out to promote, to create awareness, to get the word out, to get the message of what your product or service is. So to say that social media is the answer, and again, it kind of depends on your audience. I mean, some audiences we're more B2B that we work with. B2C, business to consumer is a little bit more apt to be social media. But anything, again, it's just a tool. You have to know your audience. You have to understand them. You know what they want, what they're looking for, and you have to make sure you get to them by the way that they get the information.
Well, Tom, how does your business utilize marketing strategies and techniques in general? Do you use social media? Do you use traditional media? And
We use a blend of both. Most of our marketing on the is sales support materials. From a printed material side, we do brochures, we do catalogs, things that help our sales force communicate to our customers what our products are. We've always had a fairly robust website as far, started out as more of a catalog type website and then transitioned into an e-commerce type. We use social media quite a bit. We've got, mostly Facebook and Twitter and a little bit of Pinterest. We try to be focused and have a plan because it can get very distracting and can get overwhelming. And either you do it well or you don't do it at all is really, kind of the way we try and approach it. On that side of it, 'cause you don't want to abandon your fan base. But we use social media to, about 3,500 fans to communicate to the customer base with new products and different things like that. And we use social media a lot to communicate to the 150 reps we have. We use that almost as an internal marketing tool to work and communicate with our sales field to keep them up to speed and keep them energized.
Can you just add one? I have clients that come to me and say, I need a brochure, or I need a short public service announcement. And I'll say, well, wait a minute, why do you think you need that? Who's your audience? And oftentimes people talk about a tactic or a tool, and I'll say, well, why? Well, because that's what you need when you have a business. You do a website and you have to have print material. Well, if you don't know your audience, let's say your buying audience are young mothers. Well, where do young mothers go? They spend a lot of time in grocery stores, right? So maybe you want to be a little more innovative and you do some signage in grocery stores on the grocery carts. Lots of times people think about only print or electronic. There are a host of other really innovative and creative ways to get in front of your audience. And so instead of just saying, I think I need a print brochure because everybody's got a print brochure, step back and say, why? Who's my audience? Where do they go? Maybe your audience spends a lot of time in their car commuting. Well, that would say to me that radio is probably a really good, and radio is a whole lot less expensive than producing 5,000 four-color print brochures.
Now, business to consumer in many ways is easier. A lot of people get it, and your audience is right there, and they're known better. Ed, you've got a different challenge because you're doing business to business,
right,
which has its own set of challenges. What do you foresee moving into the market as your challenges might be?
So the sales cycle is completely different. Let's just be honest. Selling a Dow Chemical to buy some advanced, additive technology, it's a different sales cycle. So you got to understand who are the decision makers, and part of the marketing, and we didn't talk about this last session a little bit too, but it's strategic marketing in a B2B sales. It's who is the real decision maker, who's going to buy or license in your idea or technology. I'm a science geek, right? So of course I go to the R&D guys first. Well, I will tell you, R&D people have very little purchasing power in most companies, right? They're validators of technology, but they don't really sign off anything. So understanding that market dimension of who is really going to be making, the decision, And then what are the proof points that they need to sign off on it? And like I said, it's mostly boardroom level operating margin kinds of discussions.
I want to open this up then to some questions from the audience. I can keep going, but do you have questions of your own for any of the panelists up here? Yes?
I got a question about planning, and particularly metrics used in planning. Do you guys see yourselves as using leads generated or some metric measuring demand generation? Do you use that in what you're doing?
We measure, we have leads coming in through the website for new reps and home parties. So we do measure, the closure ratio on those. Most of our leads actually come in through our sales field. So, if most of our leads are generated out there in the field, at a consumer event or at a home party. So we don't track those out there because we're not physically there to measure them. We're not even aware of them. They come in through that. So we tend to track a metric that's more of basically we track sales, leadership, sales growth. So how our people are growing and growing their leadership position. So we track the leads as they're generated internally, but that's a small number. But what we track is how our field is growing from a sales, field sales growth over like same store sales, but same rep sales. So we try and measure how it's growing out there because we're not a traditional business where you're getting leads in, and you're closing them that way. So it's a little bit different for us.
Mark, I want to touch on something that we kind of touched on a little bit on the last session. We talked about like branding and awareness and things like that. We talked about having a plan and a strategy for moving forward. Talk a little bit about the difference between maybe advertising and publicity and how those two can be different and how to use them both.
There's so many different advertising, promotional. It kind of crosses a lot of different things, but PR would be considered more of a economical. It's a better way, and Julie can probably speak a little bit more to that. But PR is, again, it's a tool. Social media is a tool. Advertising is a tool. Web is a tool. All these things are tools. So, but the idea is, I still go back to you got to have that foundation, the planning, and you have to understand what are your key messages. You really have to understand your target audiences and know how to approach them. PR is like I said, an economical way to go about it. At the same time, it may not be the best for your audience, for who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to speak to. So,
Yeah, I would say public relations is often forgotten about, and people kind of confuse public relations, marketing, don't understand the difference. Public relations, if you just think about the words, public relations, it's how I am viewed and perceived by the community or the public at large. Now, PR is going to be much more important if you are doing something in the chemical industry. You want to make sure that you got your ducks in a row and you're following regulations because you don't want bad PR. Public relations for most startups, probably not as integral as a marketing plan, only except that you can get free advertising by doing a press release or having a journalist, cover your new invention. Public relations to me, for beginners in this entrepreneur, is a little more passive. Where marketing and advertising, man, you're going out there. You're strategic. You're going out there. I hope all of you need a PR agency in 10 years, because if you need a PR agency in 10 years, you're doing fabulous. But like I said, I don't know that PR is other than a press release, unless you're dealing with government regulations and toxic chemicals, you got to have your bases covered with the public. I would spend more time on advertising, promotion, marketing.
From our experience, it's actually a little bit the opposite. I think marketing is by far out of all of it is the most important. But from us, from a consumer products perspective, from to get mind share from an advertising perspective, it was just too much money to try and get to that critical mass. We put those dollars into PR, and that was able to leverage us, on the Today Show, in New York Times.
So tell us about that. How did you do that?
We actually hired a qualified publicist. So we hired somebody who specializes in working with small businesses, a firm called Publicity PR out of Detroit. And it was kind of, when we were going our new business, he was launching his. So it was nice. We were able to put together something that worked well. And, we had a plan. And I think the key to any of this, you always got to have a plan. You're not just going to shotgun this, send out a press release, and somebody's going to pick it up. Yeah. We said, if we're going to put a press release together, who are going to be our top 20 people we're going to follow up with? We always have a list of our top 20, 25 targets that we want to get our message to and follow up with and try and build that relationship with. And so that's more how we've done it. We've done it by having a plan and following through on that relationship, because we went out and did a pre-Oscar gifting suite and got pictured with Paula Abdul, and we were able to turn that from a PR perspective into getting on ABC and getting on a couple of different things. So some of it's luck, but some of it's having the plan in place and leveraging your tools and understanding what the life cycle is of doing those gifting type suites and things like that. So from a consumer products perspective, we just felt we could not get enough attention by advertising. We couldn't afford to get into the publications and on TV that would get enough mind share. So we had to do some things more creatively, and that's how we approached it.
I think, and I used to be in PR as well, I think specifically for his business, it worked very well too, because he is reaching the community. I mean, his sales reps are coming from the community. These are in-home parties, so there's got to be a certain perception of, is it cool to have these parties? So there's that aspect of it, and then they see him on the Today Show. Well, of course, now I want to have this party. So I think for him, I completely agreed with what you said. For this stage in our companies, I think marketing
Especially
and
business to
advertising.
business.
Right, exactly. But specifically for him, I think that was the right path to go. And I think any PR or marketing person should be able to pick up on that and figure out what the best tool for him would be, to your point earlier. Right?
Dr. Schaefer, as a scientist, how much value do you see in presenting at scientific conferences so that the scientists learn about your advances and innovations, and would you consider that to be a form of public relations?
Absolutely. Anytime I presented before, it was always for a reason, but to date, and we've thought about that, Jerry, and we've chosen to do 0 scientific publications. We've gone through that channel with nothing, I mean, we might go to a show here, lead acid battery conference, mostly competitive analysis and meeting customers, but we've chosen not to at this point. I do believe, though, as scientists, that is part of your marketing strategy, is legitimizing the technology benefits. And you do that after you've already proven it 120%, and you've got all, then you can go and drive that through that. And then also to complement that idea, standards committees. When you're a business-to-business product, standards committees can make or break. I'll give you just a quick thing. So our batteries are rugged. I mean, you're not going to hurt it at all. So I'm a bit of a P.T. Barnum. I dropped it off of an 18-foot staircase. Now, how many lead-acid batteries would you drop off of an 18-foot staircase? And ours bounced, right? So wouldn't it just be, as my chairman would say, a delicious idea if we could convince the standards committees to have an 18-foot drop test for use of our batteries in the automotive industry? To save the people and everything. It's logical. We got to protect everybody, right? I mean, so that could be a real strategy in the future of working through the scientific community to drive standards that you meet, but would be challenging for your competitors.
Maybe you could get his contact to get you on Letterman and have him throw it out.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be fun. We were on Toledo News. We didn't make New York, but we made the Toledo News. I will say PR, though, can be multifaceted. So where I'm at as a company, we're still growing, and we look at our communities as people who've invested in us, whether it's time and support or working for us. And so we actually leverage PR to make the community aware of what it is we're trying to achieve and why it's good for the community. And as I said, we were in Toledo News because I did get a grant in Ohio. Right? And so that PR was really good because the people who gave us the grant, I made sure that news article got to everybody that was in the Ohio Department of Development that we worked with, so they could say, oh yeah, look, this is working good. And same thing in Michigan. We get a lot of support through the SBTDC. We got support, and Mid-Michigan Innovation Center. So, things like this. I did this as a PR to let the community know, look, this is a good organization. They supported us, and they can support you too.
One of the things to think about when going to market is how to get your product ready. And could you talk a little bit about the decision process that you're going through now Do we make it ourselves? Do we contract it out? Do we license it? Kind of, what are your thoughts around that?
And that's what we're going through all the time. You know, so going to market, getting, I mean, and we're not there. I mean, I'm a little jealous, you know, you've got revenue and stuff, but we're close, right? So, you know, labels. All of a sudden somebody said, well, what label are you gonna put on the thing? That's a damn good question. We should have a label, you know, and so form factors. What market are you going after? Batteries. We can make any shape battery if you want it. You know, we toyed around, we made some Michigan-shaped batteries, but at the end of the day, most people have a box that's this big because that's where the battery goes, right? So form factor, making sure the product would work with customers. You know, if you're going to the market, you know, we make a higher voltage battery, so making sure when we're working with customers, they understand this isn't a 12-volt battery like everything. This is a 24-volt battery, and you know, and so there's that. Then the manufacturing process, you know, how do you get it made? And of course, every investor wants you to do it with Santa's elves, and somehow it just happens magically and there's no capital involved, right? But that's not the way it happens. But tolling relationships to preserve CapEx is how we're approaching this. So we do some unit operations ourselves, but mostly we work with other people to do certain unit operations to keep our capitalization low.
You've got China, you've got some, you know, Brazil, and that's then, you know, maybe Vietnam, and that's about it. There's maybe 2 companies in the U.S. that even have any footwear capacity, and you know, it's like New Balance, and they make like 2 styles here. So for us, you know, we knew we couldn't make it. We've actually tried to look for different factories, to look for manufacturers who might have some excess capacity. But the challenge is people might have excess capacity, but they don't have the technical skills here to be able to make the footwear. So we knew, you know, we didn't want to be a manufacturer. We also don't want to box and ship product. I outsource that. We have a company in Rochester that fulfills our goods for us. So we make it in China, we import it, and we use a fulfillment center to fulfill that. We know that we are a branding and marketing and sales organization, and our job is to build that brand. You know, we design the product, we set the direction of the product, but there's not a good option for footwear manufacturing here in the U.S. at all.
Mark, Tom said his organization is a branding and marketing type organization. So from your point of view, at what point should a small company begin to be thinking about that and bring in a professional? When do they start spending money on marketing, branding, messaging?
Obviously, the steps you got to go through. You have to initially establish, okay, you've got a product, you have a service. The business plan is kind of the core thing. And everybody says, well, I've got it. But sometimes when you sit down and look at it, they really haven't identified their markets. They really haven't identified exactly who they're talking to. So a lot of times we really sit there and say, you got to do that. Spending dollars, I mean, you can come in at that stage, you can work with a consultant, you can do it at different levels. But really when you start getting into the branding, the logo, the identity that you're trying to develop, and again, it comes off that really that plan. What you want to do is from that, the elevator speech, everything you want to be down as finite as possible, and then you want to take that and have it expressed through whether your logo, your corporate identity, and from there, that's really where the dollars can be spent. But make sure you've got the messaging, make sure you have the foundation to lead into that, and an agency or a consultant or anybody can really help you hone that. Bring that together, and then from that point, you've got the building blocks to take it further.
So Julie, would you echo on that?
Yeah, I was just going to use Tom's shoes as an example. When he introduced himself, he said, "We sell interchangeable comfort sandals." Sandals. Interchangeable comfort sandals. 3 words. I know exactly what he's selling. And I'll bet you never veer from that as your brand line.
Right.
Interchangeable. Oh, I like that. I get that. Somehow he's figured out how I can make them look different every day. Comfort. Somehow in their research they found out that whoever was making these sandals before, they weren't very comfortable. That is just an excellent example of how to brand. And hit with that message. Single message in everything you do. Letterhead, billboard, whatever you're going to do. Stay focused. Yeah, consistency. And make sure people often forget internal communications. If you have staff, you can't keep that up here in your head. You need to constantly put that in front of your staff. There's a multitude
Yeah.
of responses, but
There's no one clear answer, but sometimes, I mean, you can come up with
Well, you know, they have
an event, a
infomercials
gimmick.
and-
You can come up with something that, you know, that grabs
Gotta really
the
grab.
awareness of everybody in the community, you know. You could be supporting an event with that.
free offers,
Yeah.
Okay.
you know, twofers, without knowing more, it's hard to give you a definitive answer.
Right.
But if your goal is to get people in, you need to think about who are these people and what's in it for them.
Well, or who, you know, she says they, and what you guys have said all along, who are they? And where else do they go? Where are their eyes? Where are their bodies? And figure out how to communicate to they, wherever else they are. That you gotta start with that. Until you've identified that, you know, that X% of who they are, then no matter what you do, it's not gonna, you know, it's not
That's
gonna be
right.
of value.
Right. Okay.
You know, you mentioned the school.
Yeah, well, see, I want to build a revitalization program, and I want to make a platform where families can come in, mentors with their students can come in, like big brothers, big sisters, and other mentors can come in, and for a couple hours, have a skilled tradesman or a service, profile, food preparation, gardening, animal husbandry. I want to do whatever field that is home-based type skills. And let somebody teach them some basic skills using basic tools in a safe environment, and let them take that and make a product and learn how to do business from buying your materials, producing your product, putting on the market and selling it, and then taking that money and investing it back into yourself in a grant form. That's what I want to do. Big thing, I know, everybody says, too much for me, but I want to reach people in a way where they want to be interested. I know I've had a ton of students come through where I'm a one-on-one, but I want to make it available to everyone, and I want our seniors who are retired, our unemployed skills tradesmen, to come and have a place where they can share their skills and get $5 a student.
Well,
or
here's
whatever,
probably a good example, and there's lots of answers to this, but here
Yeah.
probably is a good way to use public relations.
Uh-huh.
Because it's community-based, and you want to reach the community and tell them the good that you're doing. And then you kind of find those pockets of what's not being met in the community. What are you filling?
Right.
And reach out to those people.
Well, hopefully just getting people back to work, that's my goal.
That's great.
Wait, we've got some questions up. Let's go here first.
I have a question, it's kind of a two-part question regarding credibility. So you each have four really completely different kinds of businesses. How important is credibility to your business? And what is the most important source or action that you take in order to achieve and then maintain that?
Say, every business is based on credibility. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, it's integrity from the person. You have somebody within your employment that doesn't represent you, you need to weed them out. I mean, that credibility, you cannot afford it. I mean,
Right.
you will
To lose it.
Yeah, yeah.
I would, from a credibility standpoint, and I think, as you mentioned this in the previous one, a website is, we're gone past the days where somebody can create a homemade website and have it up there and be a credible business just because you have a website. So, I would say that, especially from a consumer products perspective, but I think, depending on a business in general, you've got to have something up there that looks professional and speaks to whatever audience you're trying to speak to. For us, it's speaking to consumers. For Ed, it's speaking to investors and
Right.
potential B2B. So you've got to know who you're trying to talk to and have a credible presence for that. I think for us, that was, within our first 6 months, we had somebody call us that was a venture capital firm that, they couldn't tell whether we were a $1,000 company or a multi-million-dollar company, and that was credibility to them. Of course, we were much smaller, and they're like, oh, call us back when you get to this number. But, the point was that we had that credibility, and we kept hearing that over, oh, you've got a nice website, and that helped people, because anymore, a large percentage of people, as soon as they hear about you or want to see something, they go right to Google you, and they go to your website.
Yep.
Well, you know, and testimonials
Yeah, those
are great.
Those are huge.
I mean, I don't know if you're talking about personal credibility, the employees, or product credibility, or, I mean, I agree with Mark. One bad apple, you know, and they're the voice and the face of your product. But if you back up from that, you have to train these people that work for you. What are I mean, sit down, we talk about a business plan or a marketing plan, but you also need to have, you know, how do I operate as a business? What's my passion? What do I care about? Where does my integrity come from? Where is my, you know, what's that country western song? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's like, where's the line? What will I not allow? What will you know, I'm an independent consultant. So my credibility is based on my 25 years of experience, I hope. But it's also based on, you know what, really simple things that my dad taught me. You arrive 20 minutes early and you stay 20 minutes late and you got half the people beat. When you say you're going to call. Now, when I was running a larger organization, you have to take those same personal tenets and repeat them at staff meetings and give examples of this was a great credibility moment. This is who we are. That's part of your brand too.
And you have to be careful of the product and the service, that it's not just smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
Because that's the worst thing you can ever do.
Yeah,
Do you want to
Well,
address that a little bit?
So credibility it's a great question, you know, and it's a key. If you're wanting to attract any type of capital, you're asking somebody to give you money, you know, you have to be a credible person in that. And that has multiple dimensions. Now, look, I'm pretty lucky. I got a PhD from MIT. You know, it's a junior college right down the river from Harvard. You know, that swings a lot of cred. You know, that's a good deal for me. But when I start talking marketing, and I'm not, you know, an expert, but I'm not, you know, it's like, geez, you know, I mean, I'm a pretty smart guy. They don't even look at me. They look at the, you know, the guy that's on my team next to me to build that credibility. And I say this when I pitch. I have a guy on my team, his name's Jerry Moas, and he's worth his weight in gold because he's built 5 lead-acid battery plants globally in the world, you know, making 25,000 batteries a day. That's credibility.
Yeah.
When he says, I can make this work and I can build a plant and we can hit our cogs, that's credibility. When I say it, I'm like, whatever, you're just the entrepreneur, you know, whatever, yeah, we know you as. So
We had a question over here too?
I was going to ask, as you guys are sort of moving towards launching the product and gaining traction, and you know, obviously the batteries are still, that's a work in progress, and the sandals are further down that line. How far behind every entrepreneur is somewhat optimistic about how receptive everybody's going to be to their product. How have you guys sort of struggled and gotten past that? How much has it hurt you, delayed you, whatever, that you've been trying to get things out there? And maybe, I mean, you talked about several different ways that you were trying to market and just couldn't get the traction before you found your sort of thing that's working right now.
Great question. You know, I'm in a lot different situation for you. You know, for me, I'm a drop-in product. You know, you buy if you buy mine, I'll give you a better warranty. So, you know, my end user adoption is not a hard push. You know, this isn't a tough sales cycle. It costs the same and it lasts longer, right? And it fits in that box you made. So it's not, you know, for us, that hasn't been the challenge. Now, I will say, of course, let's see, what revision on my business plan are we? I don't even put dates on my business plans anymore. I just say year 0, year 1, year 2, because that's a moving target, right? Because there's so many ways that you can be delayed, right? Product development, suppliers, capitalization. So we're a little bit different on this. You know, people are like, okay, I'll try it, you know. And if you do what you say, credibility, then I'll buy, you're a qualified supplier and I'll buy some more from you as long as the price is right.
Say from the planning and things like that, we probably sold, you know, 10% of what we thought we would out of gate because we had the best mousetrap, right? These are way better than what else is out there, way better. And, you know, you're gonna need 4 times as much capital as what you think, because, oh yeah, we're gonna be so efficient, we're gonna do all these different things, and it's just gonna be adopted quickly. That being said, what I think we've been very good at is being fluid. You know, the advantage you have as a small company is you can learn very quickly and adapt very quickly. And so the second you see something isn't going the way you think it is, you analyze it, you decide what do I do with that? And you have to have contingencies in your business plan, whether they're in writing or in your head, to know, okay, well, if that doesn't work, you know, retail, we're beating our head against that wall. What are we gonna do? Well, what's the problem there? We're having a problem because we've got all these people to sell to, the sales rep, the retailer, then the consumer. How do we get straight to the consumer and cut that out? So, you know, how far did it put us back? You know, that's a hard thing to measure. I mean, it's, you know, we came out thinking, oh, you know, we're gonna hit a couple $1 million in the first year, and, you know, we didn't get the capital we needed to be able to do that, so you ratchet it down. But, you know, it's just, and I didn't realize, you know, as a previous entrepreneur, I was mostly working with other people's money. You know, I wasn't raising the capital myself. I was hired by companies to launch brands and things like that, and launch businesses for them. It's a very different thing when you're out there trying to raise the capital yourself, and you start to learn and you just adjust. So I would say we're pretty much exactly where we should be right now, based on what we've learned and what we've learned about the market. We're real excited about where to go with it, but nothing's ever going to go according to what you plan. It just
Well,
isn't.
and you said something really, really important.
About time.
The way that you went to market didn't work. Someone else might have said, well, that's it, I got a crap product. You can't get it sold in stores, I'm out of business. But what you did was you went back out there, did more research, refined your strategy and your proposal, and found a different way to go.
And part of that was because what both of you said, we knew the product was good. We started from, this has got to be a good product. You know, again, don't fall in love with your product and think it's the best mousetrap in the world, but we knew the quality was there. And when we got them on people's feet, they sold. So how do we get to more feet was the problem.
Yeah,
and that was where we
exactly,
adjusted. How do we
exactly.
get it on more feet? And
Right.
that was what we had to solve.
Yep.
We have time for one more question in the back.
I have a question, two-part question for Tom. Tom, so how did you start at the very beginning developing these sandals? Like, did you develop a prototype? Did you provide 10 of these? That's question number one. Question number two is, are you experiencing any fast followers? Any other footwear companies out there who are seeing what you're doing and want to do something similar? And have you experienced any of that yet?
Okay, so first question, how did we develop this? I have to be honest, I'm not the inventor. I was hired by the inventors to launch a company. So I mean, I had some footwear background. They had some designs. They had found a designer that they had a prototype for, and that's how they convinced me. I'd known him for several years, and they finally got a prototype together, and that convinced me to be able to do it. It took them almost 7 years. They had actually licensed the deal out to a famous brown shoe company that owns Famous Footwear. Brown Shoe dumped the license back on them. You know, they were very classic, good idea, didn't know how to launch it, so they needed to bring me in to do that. So
How much later did they bring you on after they started? A year, 2, 3?
They brought me on 2008. They patented the idea. They filed for the patent like in the late 90s. So I mean, it was a long time after, and it took me about 6 months to get it to market from that point. And in general, when we have a new product idea, I do most of that direction. Now it takes about 12 months to get a new product to market. Followers, actually technically we were the follower. There were 2 other companies that were on the market at the time we launched. We were able to identify some things they were doing, and that's partially why we went down some of the retail channels we did. At the time we came out, there was a company that called Switch Flops that had launched about 3-4 years before that we really didn't know much about, that I got to know some of the people there and said, hey, we're doing really well out here. You know, here's the markets we're in. They were doing well enough that us and 10 other companies at the time we went on with something similar. You know, they couldn't beat our patent. We've got a very strong patent portfolio, but there's lots of ways to skin the cat: buttons, Velcro, all kinds of different things. Now there's only 3 left, us being one of the 3. So, you know, there were a lot of people who were doing following. We really weren't planning on doing that; just kind of happened that way. We're fortunate because what people haven't followed us into is into the home party market. Not only do we not have direct competition in interchangeables there, we don't have any other footwear competition in that market, period. So, you know, part of it, I mean, I could spend an hour telling you why I think that is, but that's kind of where we're at on it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, we are about to the end of our time, so I want to end this by asking each person on our panel if they could leave one bit of advice with our audience. What one little kernel of wisdom would you share with everyone about going to market? Ed?
Identify the fastest path to cash. Instead of sports, let's say it again.
Short and sweet.
Buy Ed's batteries. No, I'm
That's great.
I'll say what I said before as well. Don't fall in love with your product. You know, you've got to believe in what you're doing, don't get me wrong. But it's easy to fall in love and think this is the only way, and I put my heart and soul into this, and it's worth this. You've got to be willing to turn on a dime and look at new opportunities, look at new markets, and change 180 if you need to from what you planned on doing. What really matters is what's the market willing to adopt? What are they willing to take? What are people willing to buy? It's not necessarily what you fell in love with, so have an open mind.
I'd say know your audience. From the plan throughout, you got to know your audience inside and out. You have to understand where they shop, where they go, what they, you know, where they go with their kids. That type of thing, you have to know them inside and out.
Refine your message and hit with it. Whatever you're doing, be consistent.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time. Thank you all for being here.